One of the things that he failed to do, Barack Obama, was to hold those people who oversaw a torture regime, who lied this country into a war, failed to hold them to account, failed to hold George Bush to account and his administration. And that is why 20 years after 9/11, the guy who completely ignored the threat that was presented to him in the months and weeks running up to 9/11, the guy who used 9/11 as a means in which to launch an illegal invasion and occupation, the guy who used 9/11 to create an infrastructure which allowed for the rampant spying on Muslims, the spying on the general population, that allowed for a torture regime to grow and had an OLC that tried to justify it. To get up 20 years later and be, hailed as a voice of reason. Here is George W. Bush from Saturday, the 20th anniversary of 9/11.
As a nation, our adjustments have been profound. Many Americans struggled to understand why an enemy would hate us with such zeal. The security measures incorporated into our lives.
Pause it for 1 second. Yeah. Pause it for 1 second. Just like that, even this guy is able to do this 20 years later. How much hatred does an enemy have to have that it would kill 3,000 innocent civilians? Well, I don't know. Figure out what the metric is for that. Now time it times, 10,000. And you'll get a sense of how many innocent civilians we caused to die in Iraq. Or, divide it by what you need to divide to get the 10 civilians we just killed the other day.
I also love the nebulous use of enemy. Right. Who is the enemy, George W. Bush?
How much must they hate us? They don't just hate us enough to invade our country like we do, or to attempt to remake the country or occupy it for 20 years. They hate us. They hate us more than that.
Yeah.
Here it goes. Let's continue on.
As a nation, our adjustments have been profound. Many Americans struggled to understand why an enemy would hate us with such zeal. The security measures incorporated into our lives are both sources of comfort and reminders of our vulnerability. And we have seen growing evidence that the dangers to our country can come not only across borders, but from violence that gathers within. There is little cultural overlap between violent extremists abroad and violent extremists at home. But in their disdain for pluralism,
pause it.
In their disregard
is there
for
really
human
little cultural overlap?
Cultural overlap.
I mean,
but that's also telling, right? It's because of Muslim culture and Middle Eastern culture. That's part of what the root of their hatred towards us. What could we have done, right? He says, what could we have done to make an enemy hate us? So, I don't know. Well, our entire involvement in the region, slaughter of countless civilians in the region, the torture regime that then followed. I mean, I don't know.
I do think that he is correct insofar as there is not necessarily a lot of cultural overlap between people, let's say, living in Afghanistan and, let's say, people who are living in Alabama.
But who cares?
In Oklahoma. Well, there is some ideological overlap.
Philosophical, yeah.
And some philosophical overlap, which he may not touch on. A lot of that has to do with actually a fundamentalist worldview, a theocratic worldview that many of those people share. They don't necessarily worship the same God at least in the way that God dresses and the music that God listens to. But when you strip that stuff down, it starts looking a little bit like the similar God. Same motivation.
Right, except in the United States, we're all fat and happy and wealthy and not being bombed on the regular by a world superpower that is then trying to conflate like right-wing extremism here with reactionary extremism in the country that's trying to find a way to fight against that global hegemony in any possible, like, I'm not sympathizing with it, but it makes more sense. Right?
I mean, arguably, let's let George Bush make his point. Go.
But in their disdainful pluralism, in their disregard for human life, in their determination to defile national symbols, they are children of the same foul spirit, and it is our continuing duty to confront them.
Yeah, that foul spirit is, dude. You remember all the prayers that those people made when they came in on January 6th?
It's the same people that he wanted to appeal to by, making gay marriage at the forefront of his 2004 presidential
that's a similar sensibility.
He's still speaking out of both sides of his mouth here, because there's a way you can hear where he talks about people who respect life and people who respect national symbols, that he's reprimanding the left for like taking down statues and being against abortion.
Wait,
I don't know if that's where he's going for that. I don't think so. I think he's trying to sort of soft pedal his January 6th stuff. But let me just remind him, this was his attorney general.
No other kings, let the mighty eagle soar.
God, no other king.
This country's far too young to die. She's still got a lot of...
This is John Ashcroft.
You have that on the soundboard?
Yes. That's John Ashcroft, the Attorney General under George W. Bush.
My favorite videos of all
Was
time.
Bush trying to say that he cared about life there?
I don't know.
Putting himself in the other category?
Bottom line is, George Bush, he shouldn't be able to be taken seriously at this point, and it was a failure. Barack Obama's failure that he is. So
we're looking forward. We're not looking backward. We're looking forward to getting some candy to my wife.
Remember, I want to turn the page back to after that cop funeral in Dallas, where the Obamas and the Bushes were both on the stage, and George was like seemingly drunk and dancing.
Yeah.
That's what I want to turn the page back to.
Jetpack, engage. That was for long-time listeners. Denver Dave just asked for that. Folks, there's more of what you've just saw where that came from. That's if you hit the subscribe and like button. Thank you. Really, thank you.